To be is to become. To think is to imagine. And sometimes by unbecoming ourselves, by not thinking, we have to become more than ourselves. Welcome to the Life of Words. My name is Professor David Morley. And we're going to start today with a poem by W.B. Yeats. It's called The Lake Isle of Innisfree. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin built there, of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of the morning to where the cricket sings. There, midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore, while I stand on the roadway or on the pavement's grey. I hear it in the deep heart's core. The poet in that poem is describing, if you like, an ideal landscape, a landscape of a lake isle, great peace, summer air, linnet's wings, a bee-loud glade. I hear it in the deep heart's core, he says. I hear it in the deep heart's core, because that place does not exist. There is a Lake Isle of Innisfree. I've often wanted to go there. I've looked at it on Google Earth. It's just a little strip of land. There's nothing there in the shape of linnets or trees or a little glade. But he heard it in his deep heart's core because it was imagined. It was imagined into being. And when Yeats imagined that place into becoming a poem, from being to becoming, he was actually in a busy street in London with the carriages racing past him, smoke pouring from chimneys. And he was passing a toy shop. It was Christmas time, and it had a little display. And one of the things it was showing was a little river going down a little mountain. And that trickle of water behind the glass made him remember the Lake Isle of Innisfree and to reinvent it as this story. So that poem, The Lake Isle of Innisfree, written by the poet W.B. Yeats, was not imagined in the Lake Isle of Innisfree. I've been to the Lake Isle of Innisfree, and it's a beautiful place. But there were no linnets, there was no bee-loud glade, there were no trees, there's nowhere to camp or put up a hut. It's just a slim piece of land on a beautiful lake. But Yeats got the idea for the Lake Isle of Innisfree, not so much from the place as from experience. And that experience was one Christmas in London. He's walking down the busy streets, chimneys are flaring with smoke, vehicles are racing by, and he stops by a shop window. It's a toy shop, and he sees a little model of a waterfall on the mountain. And the trickle of the water behind glass gave him the spark, the prompt, the moment of that poem. Another poet who I love is John Keats. Now, John Keats wrote some of his best poems in his early 20s, and he died young. And he wrote intensely in that time. But he also wrote about writing brilliantly in his letters to his brother, to other writers, to his best friends. It's a journal of young man's writing, full of enthusiasm, full of passion, and yet also full of intelligence, of dreaming. And one of the occasions that I always find particularly lovable and exciting is when John Keats is, like W.B. Yeats, in London at Christmas time. And of all things, this romantic poet is not trudging the streets thinking of great thoughts. He's going to the pantomime. He's going to the pantomime with his best friend. And he's walking back from the pantomime, and it's beginning to snow. And John Keats notes down in his journal this discussion he had with his friend about this idea he had about writing and writers, and he called it negative capability. It's a strange phrase. It sometimes takes some of your mind to get around this idea of how you can be negatively capable of something. We all know what it's like to be capable. It's like a skill, it's like a craft, but negatively capable. And he wrote about it in these terms. He said that all people who were creators, particularly he said Shakespeare, had this condition in them of being able to inhabit other people, inhabit other things, of being in such a state of mind that almost like a dream state, where there was no struggling after fact and reason. Now, that may seem, if you like, the antithesis of something like science, where reason, if you like, and fact are, if you like, the necessary factors. But when it comes to insight in any field of thought, whether it's the life of words, the life of science, that state of negative capability, what one writer calls the painless headache, or what some people will call the zone that you go into to be creating at your best, whether you're writing a poem or operating as a surgeon. That zone, that painless headache, that act of negative capability is central towards the taking of your imagination, its transformation into something that can be shared with as many people out there in the world as possible. This idea of negative capability it's not just an idea at all. It's an actuality. You feel it. John Keats used to write that he had the negative capability of being able to imagine what it was like to be a sparrow in the dust, having a dust bath, or chittering and chattering to its fellows. He was able to go outside of himself while staying inside of himself, sure, and become other living things, and indeed become a tree, become an apple, become another aspect of the world. It's an amazing ability, but it's nothing special about it. We all have this capability of negative capability, oddly enough. We just don't name it. And sometimes we just don't use it. But you all have experienced this, and some of you have already used it. You sometimes get it, by the way, by simply daydreaming. Daydreaming. When you're in a classroom, for instance, and you're learning some particularly torturous piece of work. I used to feel this sometimes when I was being taught things like physics or mathematics. You do this thing which we call tuning out, and yet that very tuning out is not because you're bored. It's because your mind's being put into such a kind of odd state of openness that information is coming into your mind, but without you really feeling it or resisting it, even though you are simultaneously trying to resist it. That's negative capability. The ability to absorb without thinking too hard about it. And then later on to transform that very material, those very feelings into like something that's both emotionally accurate and emotionally intelligent, using words, those weapons that are not going to cut anything, they're going to basically just cut to the truth of experience, the life of words, if you like. So, as I'm suggesting, negative capability, this ability to be, if you like, in a state of reception and creativity without, if you like, the distraction of irritable fact and reason. Although I think fact and reason, just to go a bit further than Keats here, I think fact and reason are very important ingredients in negative capability. It's something, experiences in your life which are real that you can actually take out and use as, if you like, vehicles or prompts for creativity, for negative capability. I mean, I did this myself. I've always been so struck by the idea of the Isle industry, less so by, by the reality of the Lake Isle. That when I was in my past, I used to be a scientist. I worked a lot with freshwater habitats, and I used to go around sampling them for insects and for life, the life of lakes, if you like, not just the life of words. I used to do a lot of writing when I was doing that too, in a state of complete negative capability. Why? Because one of the ways you can induce that state of negative capability is, in fact, by exercise, by walking, by contemplation. It's astonishing how quickly the body will, if you like, run itself or walk itself into that zone of receptive thinking, clear perception. So I actually wrote this very short poem, which is actually called Mist Nets in the Lake Isle of Innisfree. Mist nets are these nets you cast upon the sides of trees to gently capture birds in order to ring them and then to release them back into the wild. Mist nets on the Lake Isle of Innisfree. I wake in my tent to the thrum of linnets on a morning of insect wings and glimmer. The mist melting over a mirror of water, and I go with my quiver of mist nets. Thank you for watching The Life of Words, revealing the inner life of language through stories, through poems, and through writing across the world. If you'd like to see more of these episodes, please help by liking this channel and subscribing to the future episodes. Thank you so much. I'll be delighted to see you again as we continue the exploration of this world through words.